Kiran, so this is your second directorial. And
That's right.
It's come after a good 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Why was there such a long wait? What did this project have that drew you towards this, taking it up as a director?
After Dhobi Ghat, I did a lot of writing. I was working a lot on scripts that I was developing. None of them were quite at the stage that I wanted to make them. And I was producing at the same time. We've done a lot of work at AKP in this intervening 10 years. I was part of a film festival running Mami. And I was raising a kid. So there was a lot of stuff happening, but the right script wasn't, none of my scripts were quite right and quite there. And when I heard the story that Amir kind of narrated to me, because he heard this story at a screenwriting competition called Sinistan in 2018. And when he told me the story, I was like, okay, I found my next film. So it was by chance, I suppose, but also I think the right time for me as a filmmaker. I kind of wanted to get my hands into something that was broad and fun and entertaining, and also gave me the chance to say a bunch of things, to seed it with ideas and conversations that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So
it is, like you said, it gave you a chance to try something different. So it is the contrast from Dhobi Ghat.
It is.
It's satire, it's comedic, and yet speaking so much. Did you have to tweak your approach? Were you nervous? Did you want to, as a director, try some different technique? What went through your mind to try something completely different from what you started off with?
I've always been drawn to comedy, and honestly, when it comes to genres, the journey genre, the voyage return narratives genre or trope in storytelling is always very interesting, because it allows you to sort of discover things along the way, to defy expectations with all your twists and turns. So I was drawn to that, honestly, and I've loved comedy. I've always wanted to make something humorous. I kind of feel like we need humor now more than ever, and it was a great, honestly, a starting point, the story, to talk about a lot of things that I feel are important to discuss in some way, but embed them in story, embed them in plot and character, and not necessarily as a lecture or a speech or, something that's too didactic or on the nose. It did a bunch. So this story ticked a lot of boxes for me. I was very, very lucky to be offered a chance to make it.
And so the film's about smashing patriarchy. Are there any personal experiences you drew from in terms of directing this film? And was it easier to relate with as a woman director?
I imagine that, women across the world have fairly similar experiences when you look at it. There's lots that we all go through that not very many films or popular media have tackled in this particular way. And sometimes it's about changing your perspective. It's not necessarily something that needs a sledgehammer. It's sort of a more subtle sort of perspective change that does it, that could maybe, which kind of alludes to friendship, which is about sisterhood, which is about, reaching for something that you feel you deserve, chasing your dreams. These are all themes that women are very well acquainted with, because they more often than not have to put themselves second to their families, to what other people need. I've experienced that personally myself, and I'm sure most women, especially mothers, have experienced that. And I think perhaps that qualified me a little more than perhaps someone who hasn't had that kind of experience. But yeah, it's I think a story that I felt really needed to be told, and I'm I kind of feel more stories that kind of talk about a bunch of different things, but not necessarily in putting the messaging in the foreground, need to be made,
Like you said, it did sort of better equip you because obviously you had those kind of experiences as opposed to somebody who may have not had it. There was this particular dialogue, I don't know if it qualified as a changing point or not within the film, but where Mai says that this is fraud. You know, how you've been, her existence, her identity, the way she's been raised is a fraud. What meaning does that particular dialogue hold for you, both as a woman and as a director?
Yeah, that was Sneha's brilliant screenwriting, her dialogue. But I thought it was, we all felt that it was a very important, this character actually was not there in the original story, but we felt it was an important character who kind of is a very plain speaking, kind of doesn't shy away from talking about things bluntly and honestly, in some way opens Pool's eyes to another way of thinking, another way of relating to her own experience. Sometimes that's all it takes. It's someone, you know, kind of telling you that there's another way to look at things and being open enough to accept that there is. I think that's the most powerful thing about it, is that not just that Manjumai says that this is a fraud because we've been duped for centuries and we take things for granted for centuries, or we take things, it's kind of like socialized and a kind of acceptance of a norm, which sometimes just a small change in your perspective can change. And you could perhaps it not change your entire life or the way you do things, but that perspective change will change the way you look at yourself and you view your own goals, your own value. I thought it was very, she's being sarcastic and she's being sardonic and funny about it, but it's a really powerful idea, and we all were very excited about how, you know, this character turned out.
Yes, I think she is quite a turning point for the main woman who's like a complete contrast from the other woman. Like you said, perspectives, you know, have changed. There are more women in film now, perhaps not enough, but more. How have the challenges become different or evolved, and how is the journey different from when you started off with your first film as a woman in the film industry to now with your second film?
You're absolutely right. Opportunities have increased. There are a lot more women directing. There are a lot more women producing than there were 20 years ago when I started out. And I'm really, really grateful for that. But it's just never quite enough. And I think we all need to work on getting many more voices, many more diverse voices into the film industry. And by diverse, I don't mean only women. I mean people of every color, gender, background as possible, and all the more women. I mean, I really feel women need to tell their own stories. They need to come forward and be part of the industry in a very significant way, in a way in which we don't consider them as the anomaly or the one odd woman director that's sort of doing her thing. So we need to make it a norm, and to do that, we need to change systems. We need to believe that these stories are important and fund them. We need to create infrastructure for women to come into the industry, make work safe for everyone. And honestly, that has happened to a large extent in India. We find across the country women making diverse kinds of work. Whether you go to South India or you look even in Maharashtra, there's lots of women's voices. So it's exciting times. I still feel, as somebody who's been in the industry for 20 odd years, there's a long way to go, and we could perhaps, South Asia as a whole, work towards creating a fund for more women's voices in both fiction and documentary, animation, shorts, in every kind of way, especially for women, older women who are late career women who've now, seen their children go through college. I mean, there's opportunities for women at every stage in their lives, and I feel that our industry should be welcoming of everyone, and I hope to be a part of doing that.
Like you said, industry needs to be more welcoming. I just was in a conversation where one of a female producer was talking about, how there's still this perception of getting the film picked up. You, however, have chosen to release the film in cinemas, as opposed to now a lot of films are being, picked up on OTT platforms.
Right.
And it's not the most commercial masala film. So why did you still want to go ahead and release it in, the traditional route, and not maybe, release it to a wider audience on a digital platform?
Primarily because a digital platform, while it is wide, there's a certain, and we are partnered with Jio, which is as wide as you can get in terms of a digital footprint. But I just feel like this film is cinematic, it's a theatrical in its, in the way it's consumed. I feel like it's comedies work best when you're watching it with a very big audience. And honestly, I feel like this film can speak to people in many, many different places and from different backgrounds. It would work as well in a village or a two-tier city as it would in a multiplex. And that diversity that you get when you go to theaters, you would get if you're a Jio. You do have more people watching Jio than otherwise, but it's just that there's a different connect with cinema when you go to a theater. And I'm really grateful that I will have that opportunity, because I'll be able to hopefully, penetrate smaller towns and internationally be in, in the festival, but also in cinemas around the world, So yeah, I'm actually, I feel like it broadens the film in a way that I feel this film deserves. But yeah, OTT really becomes where the film lives. It's the home for the film for the rest of its, years, and can be rewatched and reach an audience that perhaps couldn't make it for that, month when it's running in cinemas or whatever. It's there for you to watch. So I think it's the best of both worlds if you can have it.
Okay, so I'm just going to do like quick fire questions, one word responses, and then either or, and we're going to wrap it up. Won't take more of your time. How would you describe Lost Ladies in just one word?
Fun.
And being here at TIFF?
Delightful. Really.
Film festivals in general?
Essential.
Commercial masala
films? What do I say? I'm not a big commercial masala film person myself, but popcorn is the only word I can think of. Like they're light and you consume them a lot.
Okay. Weirdest piece of advice you ever got as a woman in film?
Weirdest in one word. Well, honestly, I've been lucky. I've never been given odd bad advice. But be authentic. It's not weird. It's good and honestly useful advice.
And Mr. Amar Khan is a collaborator.
Brilliant. Dream collaborator, honestly. Yeah.
Critical acclaim versus box office.
Oh, that puts me on thin ice. But box office, I would say, because obviously you know that an audience has responded to your film if your box office is good, if you're lucky. And usually if critics are also at the end of the day an audience. So.
Okay. Being a director versus being a producer.
Oh, director.
Filmmaker versus Lost Ladies.
Oh, that's tough. It's like comparing children. It's impossible to choose.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nida.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks. That was fun.